G'day everybody, welcome back to Norris Factory. This is another episode on the GTR and today we're talking hot side. So I've finally got the whole hot side for the car together here in one piece. It's been a very long and drawn out process getting the hot side for this car together and getting all the parts, especially over COVID. And also the car itself changed, the motor changed, so many things changed. And it snowballed into this absolute epic package. Well, that's what I think. This is my dream package. Okay, so we'll start with the stainless steel manifold made out of the highest quality stainless steel you can get. EGTs, which is exhaust gas temp. So we will run sensors off these away to a little box which goes to the ECU and it reads each individual cylinder exhaust gas temperature. We can get absolute precise tuning on exactly the temperature of combustion coming out the exhaust on each cylinder, rather than just relying on your AFR, which is your lambda, or your air fuel ratio of your O2 sensor. We can combine the two by having O2 sensor plus your EGTs for each individual cylinder. Now we've also got exhaust gas back pressure from the turbo. Now because it's twin scroll T4, which you'll be able to tell straight down there, T4 describes the actual base of the turbo and how they bolt on. The idea of it spooling up quicker is the way that it comes out through these headers, which are all tuned, and the exhaust gas gets sort of spun a turbulence way as it comes up through the twin scroll, which is where it gets the scroll from. Then it goes straight into the turbo, spinning the turbo wheel. We have twin Garrett Wastegates, which we'll be running. These are 40mm Garrett Wastegates, so we got one here and one here. So he designs and fabricates this manifold. It's made out of hypertune material, sort of puts him in his own jig. He's got a jig made up for GTRs 32, 33 and 34, and he can make the manifold designed to suit. But in general, that's the manifold. It is a super sturdy manifold. This manifold looks absolutely awesome unpainted or unceramic coated. However, we chose to have it ceramic coated just from the overall benefits of ceramic coating. So this isn't just your pressure pack can ceramic coating. This is proper heat treated, sent it away, had to be properly done. It gets ceramic coated on the inside and out, so it's ceramic coated in and out of the manifold. What I'll do is I'll put a photo up right now somewhere here of the manifold before it was ceramic coated, so you can see just how cool the welds were done by Fueled by Fab. Absolute gun on the tee. So next for the hot side is the Wastegates. Now luckily, because that was a loud motorcycle. Thanks to GCG, they have hooked us up with a set of Garrett G40 state-of-the-art wastegates. These things are insane. There's a lot of R&D into these wastegates, and there's some wastegates on the market that these far outperform. Now when you first look at them, they do look like they are quite large, but this bit here is quite compact, and the head of the wastegate is where all the action is and all the engineering is. It quite easily fits in one hand, and considering that's a 40mm wastegate, it's pretty cool. Now these wastegates have the ability to be water cooled, so you've got your cooling jacket in the top and out the side. If you don't want to water cool them, you don't need to, you just leave it blank, or you can put bungs in them if you like, just to tidy it up. I've got an exhaust shield here to protect the diaphragm. What we do need to do, and what I don't have, is the wastegates or the screamer pipes for these wastegates. So one will go there on the side of the manifold, the other one will probably sit around there, I would say, and we'll somehow hook these two up, so maybe bring it underneath the manifold here near the engine mount, hook that one up and just dump them straight to atmosphere out the bottom of the car. But cool wastegates, very excited to use those. Next for the hot side is our absolutely infamous turbo. Now I have done a small segment on the turbo before, so if you have seen it, this is probably not going to be news to you guys, but this is HKS's GT4R turbo, which is quite a, I think it's, according to their dynographs, it's about a 700 horsepower turbo on an RB28, so a 2.8 litre stroker. Originally it's a journal bearing turbo, so this was the original HKS turbo, the backside of it. But what I decided to do is I really wanted to run this HKS turbo. I think they're an absolute gorgeous looking turbo, and they've really got that 90s Japanese style to them. So about 8 months ago now, I contacted James from GCG, and GCG have helped us out with other turbos on the channel before. And I sent him down this turbo, the HKS turbo, and said, what can we do with this turbo to make it better? So he came up with this absolutely awesome idea that we sort of combine Garrett's new G40 turbo with the HKS one, and this is what we come up with. So let's put that sort of beside each other so you can see the huge difference in the exhaust side of it, and that's probably where most of the technology is, as well as the turbo core. So this is an oil-cooled journal bearing turbo. This is a water-cooled and oil, obviously lubricating, but it's a ball bearing center turbo. It's also got the billet bigger wheel in it, so it's now a 60mm wheel, I believe. And then also the obvious, which is the exhaust side, which is much bigger, breathes much better at those higher RPMs, as well as the engine capacity. So this is an absolute insane difference, and they've done a pretty cool job to make such a unique turbo and put a spin on it and come out with Garrett's new G40 HKS turbo. So GCG were kind enough to do a lot of filming when they fabricated and, well, designed and made this turbo for us. So they grabbed the camera and did a fair bit of filming. So we can insert those here for you. Okay, so that brings us to the last piece of the puzzle for the hot side, and that's this absolutely gorgeous titanium dump pipe that was also made by Fueled by Fab in New Zealand. So this is a 4-inch dump pipe made out of state-of-the-art titanium. It's as light as a feather. The welding on it is absolutely awesome. It's got our spot for an O2 sensor there, so I'll run one out of the back of the turbo here, and I'll also run one down in the catalytic converter delete pipe. I've got a spot for so we'll have an upstream O2 sensor and a downstream, and then the computer can work out the best of both. You don't need to do that. That is just for super fine tuning, which I think will benefit the GTR along with the EMAP in the manifold. Okay, so that pretty well goes over the whole hot side and the awesome turbo setup we're running. I'm going to start to put it all together now, I guess. I'm glad that I didn't put the manifold and turbo on before I put the engine up in, because having a look, I really don't think it actually would have squeezed past. Maybe the turbo definitely, but not the manifold. It comes out pretty wide. But yeah, that's our mad G-Series HKS turbo, and it's pretty cool because we actually have these bucket hats made now, which has got the Norris Factory logo and the HKS turbo on it. So get in contact, leave a comment in the comment section, and like the video if you want a bucket hat. When it comes to oils and lubrication in a GTR, especially the R32, it is very crucial to get the right lubrication, and it's mostly because the car's 30 years old and it's a performance car. I normally run red line diff oil in my front and rear diffs. It's a 75 140, but when you read the characteristics of it, it's like a 200 weight, or it acts like a 200 weight oil. It is a really good oil. Now what you're probably thinking is both these oils are actually gear oils, which is correct, and they both are 75 140. However, according to Hollinger, they highly recommend that you use their Motul SAE 75 140, which is a synthetic based gear oil, and I think it's got to do with the dog meshing of the teeth in the gearbox itself. So I tried to call around and ask a few guys if the Redline oil would work in a Hollinger, and I couldn't really get a clear answer. So I just thought, you know what, if Hollinger recommends this oil, we'll just go with that. I love this stuff. The Redline stuff I highly recommend in your diff oils, and that's from George from Gearhead Diffs too.
3 days later.
Okay, so it's time to sort out the wiring, plug everything in. I'm about to put the wiring manifold or rail on across the top just to hide a few things. Coolant sensor and that on the front, I want to keep factory just for that, just because it looks good and because that runs the dash, the factory dash. But I just want to say I've got to put this sensor in here, Siltech sensors, and that is a fast response air temp sensor. Let's plug that in and keep going. So I'm just sort of trial fitting all the intake system up. So I'll put the intercooler up soon. I've got all our freshly painted HKS pipes. Check these out. These are all our intercooler pipes. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking they're not going to work because of the height difference. And in one instance, you are correct. However, we had a pretty easy solution to it, and it was thanks to Raceworks, which we had on the shelf here. And that's their flexible hose joiners. So we can trim these. It's quite a long one, but what it does, it actually puts the position of this HKS hose back where it needs to be, straight through the hole down there. So that's what's normally on there. So if we put that there, you can see how much shorter it is. So this would normally be up there, and then that won't go through. Super close to that belt, but you can see there is clearance there. It'll be interesting to see if it ever does flex on that belt, but that's a really cool marker. You can see there it's pretty much set at 110 before top dead center, and yeah, it bolts down there to the oil pump. Now it is pretty weird because it states that you need a Platinum Racing Products oil pump block off delete. This is actually a Bullet Engineering oil pump block off, like billet block off plate, but it still works fine. So yeah, interesting fact. Pretty cool little product that. I like it. Now we don't have to run that back cover. That's a win for me. Gearbox is still not in, obviously. Waiting on one of the brass or copper pilot bearings. Also waiting on some dowels for the back of the gearbox. I'm not going to drop the motor back out. That's what I was first going to do, was pre-fit the motor, drop it back out, put the gearbox on, put it up in. I'm just going to slip the gearbox up on, nice and easy. Then we don't have to remove this thing, run the risk of damaging, scratching or whatever. But we're into the fun stuff, let me tell you. I'm having a ball right here. I've got a mess everywhere, check it out. I've got stuff from arsehole to breakfast. But oil cooler's got to go in, so oil temperature control with the billet block is super important because of the expansion rate of the aluminium and the heat that holds. Like, they hold a lot more heat than cast, believe it or not. I'm not a scientist, but I don't know how it works, but aluminium definitely holds more heat. So we need really good oil control. I believe that the HKS oil cooler is borderline okay. It will do. I'm not going to go out and spend thousands of dollars on another one because I have this one. I probably would like a little bit bigger, or maybe a electric fan on it, but this will do. I'm gonna up the size from I think it was dash 12, but the HKS pipes, have a look at this. Look at that, it's almost flat. So that's a HKS fitting, believe it or not. It's probably the only thing in HKS that I actually don't like. It should look like that, okay? So it should stay the same radius all the way around. We shouldn't be losing size because of anything, because of a hose band. So I'm gonna redo it. It'll have to be plumbed a little bit different. So with the oil now, oil pump here, which will go straight out and across over to there to the oil cooler, which will fit nicely up under here. I'll have to shorten this hose, which this is a Raceworks hose anyway, so I'll shorten that. Normally the intercoolers, this is a Plasma Man intercooler and it's the Pro Series, so it is quite a big beefy intercooler. So it's been a while since I've fitted this, and you do have to trim your your front bumper support to fit these in. Couple of issues we need to work on. One of them I think I've worked through for now, but it's just a flexible Raceworks silicon joiner there which actually lets you bolt in the standard HKS blow-off valve. That's a HKS part I've just had painted. The whole intercooler kit is actually HKS, so that there is oversized HKS to the intercooler, which is Plasma Man. HKS again back up through there, comes out HKS at the top, which is where it's going to get a little bit tricky because that will not line up with the single turbo at all. It's going to have to be fabricated, and it's probably a good thing we'll get a nice stainless steel one made up. I've got some parts here that I've got from our lovely friends at Kudos Motorsports, so I need to open that up. I can't actually remember what's in there, but I know it was something that was holding us up. So thermostat cover, and we should have one Nismo RB thermostat. I've also got a pilot bearing there for the clutch, which would be 6. So that goes on the end of the Hollinger in the back of the crank. Nicely. Okay, so this is how we installed the thermostat. What you got to make sure of is, see the little check valve at the top there, the brass one? That's got to be facing the top. Just make sure your cage goes right up in where it's located, up in the thermostat housing, right up in the center. And just check inside here, make sure everything's clear, nothing's blocking anything, and then carefully slide it up in. So it should look like that. So that's facing it, the check valves at the top. Everything's all okay. Now we'll go get our cover. Okay, so we got the thermostat cover on, nice stainless steel cap head bolts in it. The whole engine package is coming along really good now. We've got to work on fitting up the sensors and the wiring loom next, along with all the oil lines to the external oil pump. We've also got to get the radiator in, and then we can work on putting the Hollinger in. So we're going to have a busy weekend. Hopefully I'll have some good content coming for you guys by the end of the weekend. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.